The red-eye flight from Los Angeles to Boston had just taken off late. The cabin buzzed with that peculiar, heavy silence of exhausted passengers pretending to sleep. Overhead lights dimmed into a dull blue, casting everything in the tired glow of a hospital corridor. Only the soft rumble of engines and the occasional cough broke the hush. Sarah Miller sat in 17B by the window, a 5-month-old son in her arms and her 3-year-old daughter clinging to her thigh like an anchor. The baby wasn't just fussing. He was wailing, arching his back, kicking off the blanket. His sister, overtired and confused by the change in schedule, sobbed in chorus beside him. A small choir of exhaustion, thick in the middle of economy class. Sarah whispered apologies over and over, rocking and bouncing, trying to soothe one without losing the other. "Please, just a little longer," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. People turned. First, annoyed glances, then open irritation. Ahead of her, a man in a suit shut his laptop with a snap and sighed loudly. Across the aisle, a woman rolled her eyes and shoved in earbuds. Someone a few rows back muttered, "Unbelievable." Sarah's face burned. Her arms ached. Her nerves were fraying, strand by strand. She was holding it together, not because she had strength, but because there was no one else to do it for her. Next to her in 17C, a man in a denim jacket and dark baseball cap hadn't moved. He was reading a book. No glances, no judgment, no pity, just stillness. His quiet felt like distance, like she was failing alone. The baby shrieked again, louder. Her daughter pulled at her sleeve. "I want to go home." Sarah's chest tightened. She whispered something, kissed the baby's head, tried again with the bottle. Nothing worked. Then came the voice, clipped, cold. "Ma'am, you need to quiet your children." Immediately, the flight attendant stood in the aisle, tall, stiff in her neatly pressed uniform. A practiced frown etched across her face. Sarah looked up, startled. I'm trying." "He's tired, and we've had a long." "Passengers are complaining," the attendant said louder. "If this continues, I'll have to inform the captain. You're disrupting the cabin. Please, I'm doing everything I can. Make it stop." The woman turned and walked away without waiting for a reply. Around them, phones began to lift, recording, messaging, judging. Sarah felt her throat tighten, panic rising. She tried to stand, maybe head toward the bathroom to rock him there, but her daughter whined and clung harder. "Don't leave me, Mommy." Her knees buckled back into the seat. The baby screamed. The girl sobbed. The air seemed to shrink around her. And then a soft sound, a book closing. The man beside her, calm as ever, set his novel gently onto the tray. He turned to her, voice low and steady. "May I?" he asked, not intrusively, not urgently. Sarah blinked. Her arms trembled. She hesitated. "I've done this before," he said. "If it's okay with you, I can try holding him." She stared at him, not understanding, but something in his face made her trust. Slowly, carefully, she passed over her son. The man took him with practiced hands, cradling the small body against his chest, shifting slightly until the baby's head rested over his heart. He began to hum. Nothing elaborate. A soft, wordless tune. Just breath and warmth. And like a switch flipped, silence. The baby stilled. The cries stopped. Even Sarah's daughter looked up, stunned, then leaned quietly against her. Sarah's breath caught. Her throat stung. She didn't speak. The flight attendant returned. Her brows lifted, surprised. "You can't hold, sir." "I'm afraid I'll have to." The man looked up, his voice even. "I'm aware of the regulations," he said. "I helped write them." The attendant froze. Her posture shifted. For a moment, she looked lost. "Mr. Harris?" He nodded once. Nothing more. Sarah's eyes widened. Michael Harris, CEO of Eastline Air. The man on the magazine covers. The one with the impossible resume. The one seated next to her for the last 5 hours. She couldn't speak. Could only watch him holding her child with quiet confidence, as if he'd been there all along. And in a way he had. She turned her head, stared out the window, And for the first time that night, the tears came. But they weren't tears of shame. They were something else entirely. Outside the terminal, it smelled like wet concrete and burnt coffee. Boston's cold morning air stung Sarah's face, sharp and merciless after the stale warmth of the plane. She tightened the blanket around her son, held her daughter close at her side. A line had already formed at the taxi stand, filled with people too tired to speak or make eye contact. Michael had stayed behind. He'd said good luck, quiet and calm, and nothing more. She nodded without meeting his gaze. Then he disappeared into the crowd. After 20 minutes, she found a cab. As the car pulled away, Sarah gave her aunt's address and stared out the dirty window. Rain traced a thin line down the glass. Her children had fallen asleep on her lap, both warm, heavy, breathing softly, as if they'd finally let go of the fear. Her aunt's house was smaller than she remembered. The porch steps sagged, the railing wobbled, and the window with the plastic flower pot still looked out on the same cracked sidewalk. Her aunt opened the door in a bathrobe, wearing the look of someone who hadn't meant to wake up yet. "Well, come in." No hug, no scolding, just a voice worn down like the floorboards in the entryway. Sarah stepped inside, carrying her children. The living room smelled of mint rub and old dust. A couch draped in a blanket, a faded brick-red rug, a crooked lamp, everything the same, and somehow none of it felt like hers. "You can stay a few nights," her aunt said, setting a kettle on the stove. "Then I've got church people moving in. I can't keep you long." "Of course," Sarah nodded. "Thank you." That night she barely slept. The kids tossed and turned, their fevers flaring and fading, the blanket slipping off again and again. Sarah sat by the window, watching her son's chest rise and fall. Outside, the city exhaled in dim waves. Trams, headlights, distant footsteps. She woke late the next morning on the floor, her jacket wadded under her head. The kids were already up, watching cartoons on her aunt's old phone. Her stomach ached. Her mind was empty. At 9:43 a.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost let it go. But something, maybe that voice from the plane, made her pick up. "Ms. Miller." The voice was calm, slightly warm. "My name is Lena. I'm a coordinator with Eastline's Temporary Assistance Program. Mr. Harris gave us your contact. He asked us not to reach out directly, but said you might be someone we could support." Sarah didn't speak. For a second, she thought it was a scam. "This program? What kind of program is it?" "We support families in crisis, short-term housing, grocery support, help with childcare. We don't post about it. We don't ask for anything in return. We just try to step in where we can. There's an apartment available in Cambridge. Would you like to see it?" Sarah looked around the room. The peeling wallpaper, the space heater draped with a towel, her aunt's voice rising on a phone call in the kitchen, the kids arguing over juice. She felt fear and relief clashing somewhere deep inside, but on the surface only exhaustion. "Yes," she said. "I'd like to see it." "Great. I can pick you up today around 2. No pressure. Just a visit." "Thank you." Sarah hesitated. Is he always like this?" "Michael." Lena let out a soft laugh. "He just doesn't like looking away when someone's in pain." At 2, Lena arrived in an old Volvo and drove Sarah and the kids north toward Cambridge. The building looked modest from the outside, red brick, a white door with chipped paint. But inside, it was quiet and bright. 2 small bedrooms, simple furniture, clean linens, a crib in one room, a box of toys in the corner. "The lease is 3 months, Lena explained. "No rent. Utilities are covered. You're not required to do anything. Just stay here, rest, maybe start over if you want to." Sarah walked into the kids' room. Her daughter was already crawling onto the soft rug. The baby reached for a rattle on the floor. No one was crying. No one was shivering. "I don't know if I deserve this," Sarah said quietly. Lena's voice softened. "Sometimes it's not about what you deserve. It's about someone showing up at the right moment." A week had passed. Sarah still woke up in the apartment as if in a hotel, each time with a flicker of confusion, unsure of where she was. The bed didn't creak. Outside the window stood a maple tree with tangled branches. The windowsill was warm from the sun. And at night, silence. The kind of silence that made her lie with open eyes at first, unable to believe no one was yelling through the wall, stomping upstairs, or demanding money. The children adjusted quickly. Her daughter called their new neighborhood the house with orange leaves, and drew trees every evening. Her son laughed in his sleep. Sarah began to breathe, just a little deeper. She built a routine: breakfast, walks, laundry, a few phone calls about jobs. A small bookstore nearby agreed to meet her. Tiny steps, but they were steps toward life. And then the post appeared. She found it by accident, sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling her phone while the kids colored. Someone had posted a blurry photo, clearly taken in secret on a plane. In the frame, a man in a baseball cap holding a baby. The caption read, "On the red-eye to Boston, this man helped a woman with 2 screaming kids. Just took the baby in his arms and rocked him." Silence in a minute. No one realized who he was until a flight attendant said his name. Michael Harris, CEO of Eastline Air. Wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it myself. Sarah froze. The photo had gone viral. Hundreds of comments. Some praising him. Some accusing him of PR. Some arguing whether rich people should descend to the ordinary. No one knew the woman's name, and for that she thanked the sky. But her heart thudded in her throat. That evening, around 7, the doorbell rang. Sarah flinched, an old reflex. She peered through the peephole. It was him. Same denim jacket. Same calm eyes. "May I?" he asked when she opened the door slightly. "Did you see it?" He nodded. Held up a paper bag with bakery rolls. "I didn't post it. Didn't ask anyone to. I just happened to be in the right seat at the right time." They sat in the kitchen. Sarah poured tea. The kids were drawing in the next room. "I'm not used to being the center of attention," she said. "Especially without permission." "Neither am I," he replied. "Once, I tried to hide from everything. Money, power, planes, I thought it would protect me. But the truth is, protection is someone beside you when you're falling apart." Sarah lowered her eyes. "I feel embarrassed. Like I have to justify why you helped me." "You don't owe anything," he said. "And actually, I wanted to tell you something." He paused, choosing his words. "My mother, we had no father, no home, no stability. She held everything together with her hands and prayers. And once, during our worst month, a neighbor brought her a bag of groceries. No reason, just kindness. She cried all night. And I remembered one thing. Sometimes, what saves you isn't the solution. It's presence. Someone staying close, even for 5 minutes." Sarah listened quietly. "I grew up, became who I am. But every time I see a woman alone with children, struggling, I see her. My mother." He gave a faint smile. "I didn't help you as a CEO. I helped you as a son." Sarah wrapped her hands around her cup. "This is all so human. It doesn't feel real." "It is," he said. "Just rare." They were silent. From outside came the muffled noise of a car radio and someone laughing. In the next room, her daughter sang softly under her breath. "People are writing things," Sarah said. "They think you did this for cameras, or to polish the company's image. And me, like I exploited your sympathy. I don't know how to handle it." "You don't have to. You know the truth. And so do I. That's enough. What if they find out? We'll deal with it." He stood, walked slowly around the kitchen, looking at the kids' drawings taped to the fridge. "You're strong, Sarah. Not because you handle everything, but because you don't back down, even when you don't know how." She smiled a little sideways but sincerely. "I'm scared. That's normal. Fear isn't weakness. It's fuel. Just don't go backward." He looked at her with warmth, something almost tender, but without pressure. "I'm not asking you to trust me, just to know I'm here. Not because I have to be, because I want to be." She nodded, and it was the most honest gesture she'd made in a long time. Later, When he was gone and the home filled with the comfort of quiet bedtime, Sarah sat on the couch with a cup of lukewarm tea. She opened her phone, glanced again at the post. She read one comment buried beneath hundreds. Maybe the world isn't as broken as we think. Maybe there are still people who do good quietly. Sarah smiled. And for the first time in many months, not with irony, but with light flickering from within, autumn had arrived. Leaves crunched underfoot like old letters, and the morning air in Cambridge smelled faintly bitter, of smoke, coffee, and beginnings. Sarah walked along the sidewalk, her daughter at her side, her son in a sling, and with each step, something in her chest seemed to thaw. She still couldn't quite believe she had a job now, even if part-time, even without benefits. But it wasn't just a side gig. It was books, people, the warm light of a lamp above the register. The bookstore was small, with creaky floors and shelves stacked high with books. The owner, an older man named John, had told her during the interview, "The most important thing here is knowing how to listen, not selling, not talking, just standing beside the book when someone needs it." Sarah understood that instantly. The kids started going to a small daycare, covered by Eastline's fund, no questions asked, no paperwork. Lena had called and said, "We don't want you missing work because of a sick baby. It's all included." Sarah cried, then thanked them, then cried again. But over time, the tears became less frequent. Her movements steadier. Michael didn't come often. He didn't intrude, didn't call unexpectedly. He simply showed up from time to time, with a picnic box, with puzzles, with a book that somehow felt right. They walked in the park, talked about childhood, about cities they'd lived in, about the fear of losing something that finally felt real. "I keep waiting for this to end," Sarah once admitted. "Like it's all temporary, like a hotel room, like someone else's kindness." They were sitting on a bench. Her daughter gathered chestnuts nearby. "I feel rented, even when I smile." Michael nodded. "I lived that way too. Everything felt temporary, even success. Even my name." He paused, eyes fixed ahead. "The first time I felt stable was when one woman let me help. No pride, no defenses. She didn't try to be strong. She just was honest." Sarah looked at him. "Who was she?" He didn't answer right away. "You." She didn't say anything, just placed her hand gently over his. And that simple gesture held more trust than any of their previous conversations. Sometimes he came by late. He'd sit at the kitchen table while Sarah put dinner together. She fed the kids. Then once they fell asleep, the two of them sat in the half-light, drinking tea, speaking softly. Sometimes not at all. One night she asked, "Aren't you afraid? Doing all this? Not for the company. Just like this?" He looked at her. "I'm afraid. Every time. Because kindness is vulnerability. You're opening a door without knowing who's going to walk in. Then why do you keep doing it?" He was silent for a while, then said, "Because I can't do otherwise. Because I know what it's like to be on the other side. To be the one everyone avoids." Sarah stared into her cup. "I didn't believe you at first. I thought you were one of those people who do good for PR. For the stats. I know. I still don't know how to believe this won't disappear." He smiled faintly. "And I still don't know how to be someone who stays." She looked him in the eye. "Maybe we can learn. Together." He nodded. "Maybe." A month later, Sarah stayed late at work. John had asked her to help with the shop window, and she didn't want to say no. The kids were in daycare longer than usual. Michael offered to pick them up. When she came home, the apartment smelled of cinnamon and rice. 2 plates sat on the table. The kids were coloring on the floor. Michael was reading to them, calm voice, steady. Sarah paused at the door, watching. At first, it felt like a scene she didn't want to break. Then, like a life she had been quietly let into. Later, after the children had gone to bed and the kitchen was quiet again, she said, "You know what I'm most afraid of?" He looked up. "What?" "That I'll start depending on you. And if you leave, I'll collapse again." He didn't respond right away. Then he walked over and stood beside her. You know what I'm afraid of? What? That you'll never let yourself just be happy, even when everything is here for it. Sarah felt something shift inside her. I don't know how to receive. All my life, people either expected something from me or took something away. He took her hand. I'm not asking anything, just to be near you, not out of duty, out of choice. She looked at him, long and steady. No smile, but a light in her eyes, the kind that comes when someone finally starts to believe. That night she couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the children breathe. Words, glances, touches. All of it turned slowly in her mind. It was so simple, and in that simplicity, terrifying. She picked up her phone, wrote a message, deleted it, then typed again. I'm afraid that all of this is real. His reply didn't come immediately, and I'm afraid you're still waiting for it to break. Then a moment later, another, I'll stay, until you tell me not to. She set the phone on her pillow, closed her eyes, and for the first time in months, fell asleep instantly. Winter came quietly. The trees in Cambridge stood bare and skeletal, their branches laced with frost. Morning walks to the bookstore were colder now. Sarah wrapped herself and the children in layers, learning to move with the weight of warmth. Her daughter made snow angels in the narrow courtyard outside their building. Her son had started to babble in full sentences, his voice soft, musical. Their laughter became part of the apartment, echoing in corners that had once been silent. Sarah was different too, steadier. She noticed it in the way she walked, the way she answered the phone without hesitation. She no longer flinched when the doorbell rang. She had begun putting her name on things. Daycare forms, library cards, even a little sticker above the register at work that read S. Miller. She wasn't hiding anymore. Michael visited often. Not in grand gestures, but in the kind that became routine. A hot drink waiting for her after work, warm gloves for her daughter just in case. New books for bedtime. He never stayed too long. Never overstepped. But when he was there, the apartment felt full, anchored. One night in December, after a snowfall, he brought over a small artificial Christmas tree. No words, just placed it near the window and plugged in the lights. Sarah watched it blink to life, tiny warm bulbs glowing like stars over cheap plastic needles. Her daughter gasped, ran to hang a paper ornament. Her son clapped his hands and laughed. Michael stood beside her in the kitchen, sleeves rolled, wiping snow from his shoulders. It's not much, he said. Sarah shook her head. It's perfect. They stood there for a moment. Then she said quietly, you always know what to bring. How? He smiled, eyes still on the tree. Because I remember what we didn't have. That evening, after the kids fell asleep under a string of lights taped to the ceiling, Sarah and Michael sat at the table with tea and a candle between them. Outside, the city was wrapped in hush. Snow softened everything. She studied his face, not as the CEO from headlines, not as the man on the plane. Just Michael, a little older than she first thought, a little more tired around the eyes. And yet, something in him stayed open. Can I ask you something? She said. He looked up. Always. What don't you tell people? He tilted his head, thoughtful. You mean, secrets? She nodded, waited. Michael leaned back in the chair. The candle flickered. His voice dropped, softer. When I was 16, I used to sit in the stairwell of our apartment building and pretend I lived in someone else's unit. Not because theirs was nicer, just quieter. No shouting. No empty fridge. I would sit there for hours, listening to their dinner sounds through the wall. Sarah didn't interrupt. I started working at 17. Not because I had dreams, just so my mom could stop counting coins for rent. I got good at things quickly, computers, contracts, negotiating. It made people think I was built for business. He looked down at his tea. But I was just surviving. I built a whole life out of making sure I never had to ask for help again. Sarah's throat tightened. She reached across the table, touched his hand. He didn't pull away. And now? She asked. He shrugged lightly. Now I help people because I still remember how cold that stairwell was. And because no one should have to sit outside someone else's life just to feel safe. The silence that followed was heavy, but warm. Not awkward, sacred. That's not a secret, Sarah said eventually. That's a truth. He looked at her, smiled. You always know what to say. Only when I stop trying. Later that night, as he was putting on his coat by the door, she stood quietly watching him. Do you ever feel lonely? She asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. Michael didn't turn around at first. Then he said, Not when I'm here. She stepped closer. And when you're not here? He looked at her then. Really looked. The kind of look that unfolds years, fears, wanting. Then I remember the sound of your daughter laughing, and your son's tiny hands grabbing my sleeve. And I know I'm not lost anymore. Sarah's eyes welled, but she didn't look away. He touched her cheek. Just once, gently, as if confirming she was real. Thank you, he said. For what? For letting me in. She whispered. You didn't ask. You knocked. And for the first time he kissed her. Not like a question, not like a promise, but like something already true. Outside, snow continued to fall. Inside, the lights on the little tree blinked calmly in the dark. And for the first time in a very long time, neither of them was pretending they weren't home.